South Dakota called Igloo. I don't think it even exists anymore. They really settled in Pickstown when he was younger, and that's really where he learned to love the outdoors. I think his mother, Grandma Jean, saw the news one day and looked at my dad and said, "Tom, you can do a better job than this guy." And so he started sending out tapes, and his career really took off. He ended up going to the Today Show for 5 years, and then of course on to the nightly news. One of the things that he said he struggled with when he first started as the anchor was being stuck behind the desk. I think he is a guy who wants to be on the road, covering the story, boots on the ground. He wants to get his hands dirty. He wants to meet the people. And he was able to do that to some degree when he's on the nightly news. But I think for him, his passion was always to be the guy on the street doing the reporting himself. I think he was truly passionate about what America stands for and how great it can be in terms of offering possibilities for people. As long as I've known Dad, he's loved to fish. In the early 80s, when he discovered Yvon Chouinard, who he worships like most people worship Joe DiMaggio, it was Rick Ridgway and Yvon Chouinard who would take him on these big adventures into the wilds and taught him the elegance and the art of fly fishing, and he's been hooked ever since. He's been able to find his posse of guys like Tom Egwene, Yvon Chouinard, even Michael Keaton, and they've all gone in on these fishing lodges up in Montana. I would say that Montana in particular is a very special place for both my parents and certainly for our whole family, and that's where I really see him decompressing and relaxing. And fishing for him is clearly a Zen experience. I do think that people who are in very stressful jobs and people who are kind of driven find this a very appealing sport because, you know, on the one hand it looks very zen, and on the other hand you really have to be paying attention to what's going on around you, and you really have to understand the environment and nature. He enjoys being out there and only thinking about where the fish are, what the environments are, how do you match the hatch. But I think it's also really great for him because it has been a common denominator with some pretty great friends who he can then instantly bond with and go on these great adventures with. My parents grew up in the Midwest in the 1950s, and they really were able to experience just being out in the elements, and they really appreciate what they were able to have. Both my parents have been very involved with Conservation International, and my dad has been very involved with the Museum of Natural History. It's extremely important to him that native habitats are preserved. It's just part of who they are. Both my parents believe that you've got to respect the earth and the environment and not be overusing it, otherwise we're going to lose it all. One of the ways that Dad likes to teach us is by showing us. The problem is getting the rod out of his hand. It's kind of a joke between my siblings and me that having a fly fishing lesson from Dad is just watching him do it. He'll show you how to do something, then he'll feign that he's going to give you the rod, but then he's like, well, let me just show you how to do that again. But he's very, very patient, and he has great techniques, And when you actually do land it, he is excited for you as you are for yourself. So I really love that about him. He just absolutely loves the sport. When Dad is teaching my kids about fishing, it's the same as what he talked about with us, which is you've really got to respect the fish. And it's not about the quick reward and being able to say what you caught the biggest fish. It's really about the journey and what it takes to understand what the fish is doing. Sort of slow yourself down and really master the sport instead of just being able to get the trophy in the end. You know, I just think that Dad in another life was really a fish. He truly loves this sport. It's his best favorite activity. He loves the idea that it's never the same, that it's challenging both physically and mentally, and it's also usually in a beautiful environment. I mean, what more could you want for it? Nothing about fishing sucks. It's all pretty great. Of all the things that he does for a living, this is the one that is so important to him, and he's worked really hard to make sure that all of the environments are protected for the fish, and he really wants to respect it and keep that legacy alive.